welcome back. We are back talking about different things in life. And a question that we've been asked before in the past is, how do you both work together?
No.
Because there's a lot of people, right, that are like, oh, I'd never be able to work with my spouse, let alone work with your spouse and your kids or anybody in family. So I think we should address that and just kind of talk through how we work together.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a question because I think there's not a lot of examples of that in the world.
Right.
My initial thought is that it's not easy, but actually it is easy. And again, it goes back to the interdependence thing. We keep talking about that all the time.
It's a series,
it
right?
really is interdependence because we both have the choice to have the respect for each other's opinions and decisions, and we understand what it really takes, because ultimately a decision for any kind of business that you're doing or any kind of work that you're doing does affect the other person. So, one of the big things that we decided together right out of the gate was once we started having kids, we realized about 2-3 years into Mercedes, she was maybe a year.
Yeah.
And we were realizing, man, trying to raise kids and tour and do all the touring work that we were doing at the same time, this isn't really going to work.
Yeah.
And so while we both had big time career opportunities where there was a lot of up and coming stuff, like we got offered, tour management jobs. Guys were, bands and groups were offering us like, hey, we'll make you guys our road managers, and we'll get you guys Prevost buses, and you can have your whole family, and you guys can tour around, and we'll pay you, like twice, 3, 4, 10 times more than we were making at the time. And it was like, oh my gosh, these are good numbers, and they would take care of us. But, and we probably could have made that work. But see, the real decision... I know we could have,
but we made different decisions,
But the reason that we made that decision was because we both had the respect for each other.
Yeah.
We had a bigger vision other than just, wow, we can make a lot of money right now. To the bigger vision was like what we had talked about before with Empyrean, and why some of those things were important was because we really wanted our kids to know what it was like to have a great home growing up.
Yeah.
To have somewhat of a stable life in the sense that mom and dad weren't gone all the time. And then
it wasn't
and
somewhat,
sure
it was
we were
a
around.
stable life.
Yeah. But I mean, like, stable is whatever. But like that we were home, that we would be there, we would be involved in taking them to school and dropping them off and kissing them goodnight and praying for them every night and doing those kinds of things. But also it was like some of the days prior to your grandparents kind of starting to lose their minds, so we wanted to make sure that they had really good experiences getting to know them, and they did.
And your grandparents?
And my grandparents and my parents, and while some of the grandparents were still doing the touring thing and all that kind of stuff, it was like your parents were constantly out and gone, but like we had enough of a kind of consistency of making that life for the kids that we made sure that was taken care of. And in those same decisions are the same things as how to work together.
Correct.
Because deciding how you're going to raise your kids, how you're going to take care of stuff, and turning down big giant money opportunities or career growth opportunities to do something that's bigger than, because raising kids is a bigger than anything else. It's probably one of the most important things that a couple can do together is to raise kids. Yeah, and focus on the marriage, focus on the kids, and do that. And it's a short term, like in the life, a big picture of life, that was 20-ish years of a commitment to do that thing. And every time big decisions came up, like, oh my gosh, we could make this huge project or whatever, we had to rectify it across, like, we're in this phase of raising kids. That doesn't necessarily work to go out and build $100 million project in, Las Vegas or somewhere else, because that's a great opportunity, but it's not the right timing because we're doing this phase right now.
Right.
And I think that's how you work together.
Right.
It starts with the mutual respect. It starts with the interdependence. It starts with the vows of the marriage and saying that we're going to do what it takes to make sure that things work.
Right.
And not call divorce and not pansy out and not run away.
Well, my response has been, farming has been in the world for centuries, and husband and wife teams ran farms for centuries.
Yeah.
And it was a singular-minded goal for the couple to, have a roof over their head and food on their tables and to raise their family the way that they felt was correct. And, we don't go out and run a combine or plant seed or, milk cows or anything like that, but we're out working the work that we do, the skill sets that we have, and bringing our kids along with us on that, and accommodating that, and also working alongside each other. And, a lot of comments I've had over the years is like, how can you be next to each other that long? Don't you get sick of each other? And it's like, honestly, I've not really ever gotten sick of being around you. There have been times I've been irritated or, annoyed. Same goes for you, I'm sure. But, there's intense moments that sometimes, because both of us are intense in those moments, it's a hard atmosphere to be in. And if we were working separate jobs, maybe one would come home from an intense day and the other one would be able to salve that wound a little bit better because they didn't have that same exhaustion. But you wouldn't have the relationship of intimately knowing exactly every detail that caused the intensity.
Right.
And some people do better not working together, and that is okay. But I wouldn't trade it for anything because, with the changes and stuff that we're in right now, I had looked at, do I need to get a job? Do I need to do these things, that thing, the other, in the midst of all this stuff, just to make sure that ends are met, and you've done the same. And I just, everything is ingrained in being alongside you and pulling the load together. And so I just don't find that appealing. But some people do, and that's okay too. And I don't have any criticism for anybody that doesn't want to work with their spouse for any given reason, but I would be critical if the reasons are that because you don't like certain things about your spouse or you need time away from your spouse for more reasons than just a breath. I think that's when I get critical of someone when they're saying things like that, because typically people who are saying things in that way are having marriage problems.
Yeah, there's something that you're not saying.
Something else.
Something's underlying that you're not talking about.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, temptations still show up, and things try to come alongside of people that are like, woohoo, hey, trying to get your attention, even working together, and you have to be wise. And I think for me, and I'm speaking from my side, I don't know how that feels for you, but I feel more confident and comfortable because I know the scenario that's going on, and I can just say, hey, that situation just made me feel a little weird. Can you keep an eye on that? Make sure that person's not being a little too friendly or whatever. And I know you've done that with me too. It makes me feel better because I know that I'm in real time being able to have that conversation with you, and I'm not having to find out later or hearsay through a friend group or something that someone's been making a move or leaning in a little too close or whatever. And I'm not there to ask the question.
I think when it comes to that kind of stuff, I think when you have a really good, tight relationship and fulfillment is coming through the marriage for each other, there's not a whole bunch of issues going on. And I don't know, most guys, I think when fulfillment is there, when everything is right in the relationship, and it can be somewhat challenging, there can be challenges. That's the way life is. So it's not like it's perfect all the time, but it's right, and it's right enough. I think most guys become kind of oblivious to some of this stuff, right? So they're not going to sit there and think, oh, I'm not being fulfilled at home. I'm not getting, enough sex. I'm not, being talked with enough. I'm not having actual conversations about things enough. And so for me, it's, I think guys become oblivious to stuff. Mm-hmm. Always an interruption around here.
It's when it gets deep and important. This is how it works in life, guys, is when the important topics come up, the distractions come. So we'd love for you to restate that.
So I think when fulfillment is in the marriage, and that fulfillment isn't always like sex 5 times a day. It's not, all these perfect case scenarios. But the fulfillment of the spirit comes through good relationship, good conversations, listening, doing all the things. And sex is part of it, sure. But then all the fulfillment is there. You're not going to sit there and think about the missing thing in your life. So even when situations come up, if some lady came up to me and started trying to talk and trying to get my attention, I'd probably be completely oblivious to it. Other people
which has happened.
Oh, hey, did you know that chick was trying to do this? And
No.
I didn't know at all.
No.
But okay. and then I might be a little more aware of it just because somebody pointed it out, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna all of a sudden, well, maybe I could get something else that I have, I'm like, why? I don't need anything else.
Right.
And so the marriage is good, so, and I think part of working together, that's where, for me, I don't really understand people who say that they could never work with their spouse. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, I don't relate. I can't even comprehend and understand that.
Right.
Because to me, it doesn't make sense that, each of us would go off into a different direction. We'd have another work life, and we would do our thing, and then we'd come home and kind of gripe and complain about whatever the thing is that was going on at work, and we're not going to really relate to it. I'm not going to understand what you did at work and who the people are. Right. I might see them at barbecues, so I'll have a reference of who they are, but I'm not going to understand the work challenge that just came up, mm-hmm. and vice versa.
Right.
And I think that's kind of like a missing gap. Like a third of my life is not with this person, and I don't understand. And mm-hmm. I think that's where a lot of times some of that kind of unfulfillment or just second guessing or ruminating and overthinking things starts to come up. Like this, one of the team comes back from a trip or something, and it's like, oh yeah, I went on this trip, we hung out, and blah, 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 and then we did all these things, and this was great. And you're like, okay, well, who are you hanging out with? And, oh yeah, there was this new guy at work, and it's like, or this new person at work, and well, what were the conversations, right? And you just kind of start second guessing all the things. I don't know that that's necessarily good, but that's why I don't relate to it. I can't even understand it and comprehend it. And that's not to say we're hand in hand connected at the hip 24/7, because I go out and do 14-hour jobs, 20-hour jobs on projects at different sites, and we might talk once in that whole day, but it doesn't mean that I'm it's like stuff is not coming up that's going to make our
well, over the last year we spent 4 months apart.
Yeah, right.
And so we're not saying work together and have to be side by side. I mean, we just know we're on each other's same mission. We have the same goals. We have the same aspirations. And, I might be in Florida and he may be in Colorado working, or vice versa, and living for weeks at a time without each other. And, we have at least a daily check-in with each other. Sometimes one or the other time zone change or whatever isn't so accommodating schedules, like you're working late and I'm already in Florida and it's already midnight and you're not even back yet from working late and blah.
Right.
And we may not get a check-in time.
Right.
We don't have to have that all the time. It's nice. I appreciate it. I love that communication that I care about you. Hey, are you okay? I'm going to bed, kind of a thing.
Right.
But no, it's, I don't know. It's just, for me anyway, I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
The cons of it, really, the only one I can think of is that work never stops. And if you're a person, and I'm saying con very loosely, because most of the time, because it doesn't stop, we're better at what we do, because we can talk about it in the midst of other things, and as a topic comes up that it came up in my head just all of a sudden, we can address something in the midst of it in real time, which makes your employees nuts if you have employees that they've left and they're gone for the weekend, and then you've managed to be with each other the whole weekend, and you get to make decisions together, and then all of a sudden you come back on Monday and you've basically written an entire script and you've got a whole schedule and all that stuff. The only thing we have to get better at, and we worked on, is reporting what's been decided to those that are impacted by it, and being ahead of that, so being respectful of it. But using the word con very loosely, that it doesn't shut off. And I would say for me, only time that's a con is when when I'm sick and I'm not feeling very well, or you're sick and you're not well, and there's not other people that can make those decisions. It has to be the two of us making them together.
Right.
And you can't just sleep through it when you really need to.
Right.
So that's the only con I can think of.
And I think that probably brings up work-life balance.
No, Lord.
And that's always a funny thing. I have died laughing about people who say work-life balance, because I think that every bit of our lives need to be balanced.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that one thing is a negative or a con or an opposite to another thing.
Right.
So everybody gets the same amount of time in a day.
Yep.
And everybody does pretty much the most of the same types of things. We spend 8 hours sleeping, we spend technically 8-ish hours at work, we spend another 8-ish hours doing whatever we want to do in that last little bit, 8 hours. And those cycles of how life works can't be balanced because
right.
our lives don't have this perfect case scenario where, work is over there and it's only compartmentalized to that, and it's not going to flow into my personal time, and sleep and this kind of thing. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And as much as anybody wants to say that it does, and maybe you've had some places where you think, oh, my life is perfectly balanced, well, then a challenge comes along and it's going to mess that up. Mm-hmm. And so really life needs to be out of balance. It needs to have challenges. And really the things in life is really figuring out how to work through those challenges, how to build up the stamina, the patience, the fortitude, the stick-to-itiveness to get through the challenges.
I would say,
and how to balance what is work and what is personal or other times, and say, yeah, there's times when you have to deal with the situation. So when as business owners, there are times when we have to deal with a situation. It's not very convenient. I'd rather be doing something else. This happened or that happened, and now I'm forced to go deal with the issue, and that's part of life.
Yeah. It's 10 o'clock at night and your facility's flooding. What are you going to do? Well,
right.
You're going to have to handle it. You can't just say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not on the clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I don't believe in work-life balance in the same sense, because every part of life is life.
Right.
Now, do I bring home tons of stuff and constantly rag about it and gripe and complain and then sit there and do 40 hours of homework at home, and ignore the rest of the family? No, because that, you're interdependent with the other people in your life. And not everybody's on the same project. Not everybody's in the same, issues. But then there's other times where we're like working our butts off for 3 weeks together, and it feels like you never get away from any of it.
Right.
And then that's where the balance of it comes out. It's like, okay, so we're going to work really hard in this season, and we're not going to get a whole lot of breath above water because we're in the middle of this project for this duration. But, we just set a calendar for a nice big long family trip or a vacation.
Right.
And there's a difference. One of the pastors we listen to, he talks about family trips and vacations. And those are things you need to look forward to.
Yeah.
And he says the difference between a family trip is like you take the whole family and you go on a trip. And it could be to Disney World, or it could be to a resort, or it can be
and that's going to be
whatever.
a workout.
And that's a family trip, and you have to figure out how to deal with a family trip, and there's challenges that go on with that. It's really actually fun to work through.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, don't scream and yell at each other when you're trying to read a map and find your way to the hotel or the airport or rent a car.
You knew this was coming.
That's part of how the challenges of it is. Yeah, family trip. But then a real true vacation is usually just me and Heidi, and that's what, Pastor Mike was talking about, and he's saying vacation is when just Heidi and I get away from everything and spend time kind of off clock of all of that. And that requires you to set up the business, to set up the work, and set all of those things up so that it doesn't interrupt your vacation.
And
which means you need to really work hard on it to make sure that it's set that way, and that might take more hours than you thought you had.
And I would say as our daughters have gotten older, it's more like a vacation when we go with them places when it's just them and us.
Yeah.
Because they've learned to be interdependent and independent. So there's times where they need their own thing, and instead of feeling like they got to take everybody with them, they can take a breath and go do something else, and it's a very nice experience. I've always loved the family vacations though, but stop wearing the world's most expensive trip shirt, please, dudes, and women, stop buying them for your husbands.
Yeah, that's one of the things we might make a cliche. What do they call it? A video where it's like, see all the cliche dads that have all the most expensive trip, shirts at Disney World. Maybe we'll go around and shoot a bunch of shots like that and make a compilation video.
Yeah, to me it's just offensive.
Show all these doofy guys. We'll blur their faces so you don't know who they are, but we see those shirts constantly at all the parks.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of a cop-out. That's the pansy dad that is, complaining about having to be around the family, and probably complains about needing work-life balance.
Well, and I think it shows the core of the spirit of the person when they're willing to wear a shirt like that, because it's actually not funny. Anything that's a sense of humor kind of statement like that has an element of truth to it. And, you know, so you have to be like, there's something wrong there. And you know that there's an off-putting experience that's happened with the family at some point.
Well,
and
what
they're usually the ones mad in the store or mad
Right.
at the restaurant.
Yeah, we're mad at they're mad at the fact that the credit card bills come in. Well, what do you expect that life is about?
Right.
Right? So that's my question. My question is life about just making money and putting it in savings so that one day when you retire, quote unquote, that you can do what you want to do? So you're going to work 40 plus hours of your life.
Yep.
So that you might have 5 to 10 to 15 years of doing whatever you want. So you'll be a slave to this other guy for 40 plus years, working a career, hoping to save enough money.
And nowadays
so that
it's
you
not
can
one
be free.
place, it's many places.
Yeah. But then so that you can be free for 15 years,
Yeah.
well, hopefully more than 15 years, where you can be free to do what you want.
Yeah.
Or is it really about amassing the most amount of experiences and the most amount of memories and the most amount of benefits that you can pass on to the next generation?
Right.
So that they can be excellent.
That,
So if you're
it.
going to plan a trip to go to Disney World or Universal or whatever your favorite family trip
Yellowstone.
destination is, and you plan to budget for that, that's what that's all about. So those are the goals that you shoot for. So if you're working your butt off for like 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, and you're planning to have an amazing trip, don't set yourself up for these stupid poverty failures by putting these kind of doofy shirts because you think it's funny or you think it's cool. I think that those shirts
It's a passive aggressive
need to
move.
be, they need to be kind of, quit thinking like that and focus on what the benefits, like, man, we worked our butts off and we all together as a family earned this trip, and we're now getting to go and enjoy this trip together and learn each other's lives a little bit better, experience more things, learn more stuff. This is why I don't believe in school anymore. It's like taking kids on trips and helping
That's a
them
whole
learn
nother
why
conversation.
math is math when you're reading a road map, or like why math is math when you're planning flights and hotels and budgeting for your food that day and all those kinds of things. That's life. And I think that's what needs to be really the most focused, so that when you do get to the vacation and you are spending the most expensive money you've ever spent, that it's actually a joy, because it's that deep relationship building and memory building.
I also
and that's
have
more important than
I
anything.
agree. And I also have another thing on that. How much life did you exchange to be able to get to that place? And then you're going to let your kids sit on an iPad in the stroller and miss it?
Right.
Which means they're missing the entire thing. So the only person experiencing it is you. And you're miserable and frustrated. You've set yourself up to have an attitude by the things you wear and the stuff you surround yourself. And then the only time you're getting a smiling picture from your kid is when you rip the iPad away and promise a lollipop. That is something so screwed up. Stop putting an iPad in front of your kids when you get to the national parks, into any experience, or doing anything that you were supposed to be doing as a family, because it's not helping them.
Right.
They're not seeing the world the way you're seeing it because you're not making them. Our kids had to ride across country and look out the window, just like I did. Why? Because how else are they going to have an appreciation for how long it takes to drive from here to Chicago? They wouldn't know if they were on watching, let's see, that trip is 12 and a half hours, 14 hours depending on what route you go and the weather and everything. So what is that, 7 movies? So if all they know is 7 movies,
That they've
and the
probably
pea
seen
stops
before, frankly.
and chicken nuggets on the way, but they don't actually look out the window, that you've done your child no good. No service whatsoever. Now it's different when you're riding an airplane. There's not much you can do. I can get that. But when you get to the destination, don't you yourself or the people that you've brought alongside with you that are in your care and direction, your children, have them miss the opportunity to actually see Old Faithful go off and to document that. The only reason that they should be looking at their phone is to take photographs.
Right.
And I challenge you on that, because there's so many people. I've been to Disney parks quite a few times. That is an expensive investment in your family and the people that you love. And there are strollers, those carts full of kids just on iPads, listening to music really loud, or videos or whatever it is, really loud, where it's interrupting the experience of others around them, and they're missing everything. And then they cry when you pull it away from them to see the actual thing you're there for. Well, you didn't set it up for them to understand that they were there for anything anyway. So Just as a parenting thought, and I understand there's circumstances that some people need to have those things, but the majority of people do not need to be sitting in a stroller or being distracted when they're in a place as beautiful as Yellowstone National Park or along the ocean side or at a unique amusement situation where it's a once in a lifetime for a lot of people experience that they will miss and not even register they were there. That's sad. The other thing I had a thought on is working together. You had mentioned building stamina, things like that. I do believe that a lot of people who work believing that they have a work-life balance and do whatever they do for work-life balance. Could be employed, could be self-employed. That is part of the drone / programming that's been going on in our society, where they've got it so perfectly balanced that they can literally disappear into their video games and other entertainment when they get back regularly. There's nothing wrong with it on occasion. I do it on occasion too. But they don't have the stamina and the skill sets and the fortitude and the mental agility to handle things that come up out of the blue, because they're so working on that balance so much that they can't handle a water heater going out or a tire blowing or anything else that completely throws them off. And then it ruins their day instead of causing them to have an opportunity for a new adventure. And everybody's going to stop making everything into a negative and turn it into a positive. And that's the thing my grandfather used to say all the time was fun is mandatory. No matter what you're involved in, no matter the situation, no matter the challenge that you have, this can be for working together as business or whatever, you need to be able to make mandatory fun out of it. And if you're so busy about being worried about having that finite balance all the time, and you rely on that, you're robbing yourself the ability to be ready to have an adventure when it comes your way. And no, it may not be fun initially, but there are ways to have fun in every situation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, whether it's going on a family trip, you're always going to get delayed.
Yeah.
Right? There's always a delay. There's always something that comes up, throws it off.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It throws off the expectation. The car rental doesn't work. The hotel's not the right thing. The restaurant wasn't open. Your park tickets don't work. You know, there's always something, right?
And your stomach doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, you got sick from something that you ate, or water didn't settle with you, that it's in a different town. Mm-hmm. Got some weird food poisoning, whatever it was that was going on.
Not all of it, yeah.
And if everything's got to be in perfect balance and on a perfect schedule, those things will mess up your life terribly. So allowing room for things to become an adventure and then enjoying that adventure along the way, I think is a big key to that. So yeah, you're right. Exactly.
That's part of why I really enjoy working with you, is because in the stuff we've built in, we have hard due dates on a lot of things. But we also understand that there are times where we need to have a buffer built in for a lot of different things because you don't know what's going to come up. And, we've been on trips where I got sick. We were standing at the gate waiting for the plane, and I am not feeling very well. And we were so flexible to be able to change that process when they were looking for people to volunteer to change their flight. We were able to take that and just literally sleep in our t-shirts and wash our underwear in the sink at the hotel they gave us and then go the next day. And it made it so I could get well, which was flexibility. Yes, our luggage was already gone.
Right.
But instead of making it into, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing on the planet and I feel sick and I just want to go home and I'm going to be miserable on the flight, and forcing us to do something, we were able to take a breath and go, okay, well, there's another option. Let's do an adventure today. And it allowed us to go and rest and get well and then fly the next day.
Yeah.
So I encourage you, embrace adventures. And embrace life as an adventure.
Yeah. Well, and embrace the fact that sometimes those adventure interruptions are keeping you from something.
100%.
We find that a lot of times too. It's like trying to get out the door, and I keep getting delayed. Finally get out the door and realize, 30, 40 minutes later down the road on interstate, there's a big massive accident that if I'd have left on time, I might have been right in the middle of that.
Yep.
And so sometimes those distractions are really to keep you from this weird destiny of destruction,
right?
And it's the Holy Spirit messing with your timeline to mess you up, and you could tick you off, make you mad. You're going to be frustrated, late, all this stuff, but you're avoiding, a massive catastrophe that you didn't need to be involved in. So that's also some way to look at it too, and we've really balanced that out. I know early on in our
By the
marriage.
grace of God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of this isn't just coming from, oh yeah, one day we just decided. No, this is coming from hard knocks of learning it the hardest way possible. Being super frustrated, angry, letting all kinds of things mess up my day and mess up my stuff, and saying stupid things when I should have never said stuff. We've all done that, and that's why when we talk about this stuff, it's not just, oh, we just one day woke up and we're all hunky-dory and very cool and we learned all these great things. It was like, no, we learned this through pain and damage and frustration, and then also having that statement we talked about, divorce is not an option. We're in this for all of it. So that even means through the mess-ups, the screw-ups, the saying the wrong thing, saying the wrong stuff, doing the wrong thing, all of that, learning through the pain and destruction of it, coming out the other side because we chose to do it right.
Yeah.
So,
man, we have a litany of adventures that built our stamina and our muscles for adventure, for sure, because of all the different things. We broke down in northern New Mexico.
Yeah.
And blew our transmission on our pickup truck and got stuck for 2 weeks in one place. And our dog died on that trip. It was just a thing. We thought it was diesel at the station up in North Dakota or whatever. Ended up being gasoline on a diesel truck, and had to limp that into a little town and go through a process of getting that siphoned out and fixed, and that was a mess. I mean, there's so many things that in the moment was like, oh my gosh, but our faith kept us grounded. We knew that God had a plan. And B, we chose to make it an adventure instead of turning it into a disaster.
Right.
And C, we protected each other no matter what, because we were each other's best advocate and the only protection our kids had. And that's how we've operated business together, is all the same processes.
Yeah, so that's how you work together.
Yeah.
Sounds easy, right?
Yeah. It's actually a workout, but it's a lot of rewards and fun, ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for working with me.
Yeah, well, thank you, too.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helped anybody, but that's how we do it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for being here.
Bye.